Shalom, family. Thank you for joining me again in Sectarian Wisdom. I'm your man, Elijah. And as usual, I am a wise, wealthy, rich, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Let's get it, family. Family, as usual, you see the Kolbrin in the corner. And last time we did chapters 3 and 4. So now we're going to pick up at chapter 5. All right, okay, it's recording. Here we go, family. Chapter 5, in the beginning. Well, let me show you. Just give you. Oh, and as usual, if you want to follow along, the PDF is in the description box. Now the children of God were molded by the hand of God, which is called Awen, and it manifested according to their desires. For all things which have life are molded by Awen. The fox, shivering in the cold lands, longs for warmth, and so its cubs have warmer coats. The owl, clumsy in the dark, longs to see its prey more clearly. And in generations of longing, the desire is granted. Awen makes everything what is, for all things change under its law. Men too are molded by their desires, but unlike the beast and birds, their yearnings are circumscribed by the laws of fate and destiny and the law of sowing and reaping. These, the desires modified by the laws, are called Enid Vadu. Unlike the beast and birds, this in man is something relating to him rather than to his offspring, though they are not untouched by it. Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey, the destination being his destiny. He may choose whether to go by way of a river or by way of a plain, whether across mountains or through forests, on foot or horseback, slow or fast, and whatever befalls because of this decision is fate. If a tree falls on him because he chose the forest path, it was fated. For luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choice, which may be good or bad, but it cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. The circumstances, inidvadu of the traveler. Hold on, I want to go back, family. Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey, the destination being his destiny. He may choose whether to go by way of a river or by way of a plain, whether across mountains or through forests, on foot or horseback, slow or fast, and whatever befalls because of this decision is fate. If a tree falls on him because he chose the forest path, it was fated. For luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choice, which may be good or bad, but it cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. The circumstances of Enid Vadu, of the traveler, conform to the law of sowing and reaping. He may travel in comfort or pain, happily or sorrowfully, with strength or weakness, heavily burdened or lightly burdened, well prepared or ill prepared. When the destination is set according to the degrees of a former life, then the circumstances of the journey should conform with the desire. For what use is it desiring a great destination when the law of sowing and reaping decrees that an intolerable burden must be carried on the way? Far better to have lesser aspirations. The decrees of fate are many. The decrees of destiny are few. When the earth was young, and the race of man still as children. When the earth was young and the race of man still as children, there were fertile green pastures in the lands where all is now sand and barren wasteland. In the midst of it was a garden land, which lay against the edge of earth, eastward towards the sun rising, and it was called Meruah, meaning the place of the garden on the plain. It lay at the foot of a mountain, which was cleft at its rising, and out of it flowed the river of Tardana, which watered the plain. From the mountain on the other side ran the river Kol, which watered the plain through the land of Caladan. Caladan, that sounds like a Star Wars term. Family, you see, I think I mentioned before, you see a lot of the stuff you watch on TVs and movies are really from old writings. But if you never take the chance to study and to see, you'll never find it out. Like you got Yoda in the Bible, you got Endor in the Bible. Come on, family. The river Nara flowed westward and then turned back to flow around the garden land. It was a fertile place, for out of the ground grew every kind of tree that was good for food and every tree that was pleasant to the sight. Every herb that could be eaten, every herb that flowed was there. The tree of life, which was called glasser, having leaves of gold and copper, was within the sacred enclosure. There too was the great tree of wisdom, bearing the fruits of knowledge, granting the choice and ability to know the true from the false. It is the same tree which can be read as men read a book. There also was the tree of trespass, beneath which grew the lotus of rapture, and in the center was the place of power, where God made his presence known. The tree of trespass, beneath which grew the lotus of rapture, that reminds me of the show on Apple that came out, I believe, earlier this year or late last year. I forget what it's called, but it's a sci-fi show on the Apple station. And it's about this emperor who at some point thousands of years ago started cloning himself. So no new king ever took over. So it would always be him forever now, but not necessarily him, not the first him, but a clone of him. And another thing I want to go back. So I don't know, that's just something to throw out there, a thought. It was a fertile place, for out of the ground grew every kind of tree that was good for food and every tree that was pleasant to the sight. This sounds a lot like the Bible. I wonder where it got stuff from. Every herb that could be eaten, every herb that flowed was there. The tree of life, which was called glacier, having leaves of gold and copper. I'm trying to think. That's what I was looking at. I'm trying to think. Where have I seen a tree somewhere, or what type of fantasy movie or book or something where there was a tree with golden leaves or copper? I'm kind of trying to think if there was a tree in Lord of the Rings that had golden leaves or copper. There too was the great tree of wisdom, bearing the fruit of knowledge, granting the choice and ability to know the true from the false. It is the same tree which can be read as men read a book. There also was the tree of trespass, beneath which grew the lotus of rapture. And in the center was the place of power, where God made his presence known. Time passed, and the children of God were grown strong and upright. Time passed, and the children of God were grown strong and upright under the tempering hammer of God. And earth, the anvil of God, became more kindly. All was pleasant and food plentiful, but life paused in such places. For it is against the nature of man to flourish in these circumstances. Earth is not for pleasurable dallying. It is a place of teaching, trials, and testing. The children of God were not yet the heirs of God, nor inheritors of godhood. But there was one among them who had almost completed the pilgrimage of Enid Vadu. He had unraveled the tangled skins of fate and traversed the tumultuous seas of life to the many ports of destiny. And having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enid Vadu. Okay, so family, when they talk about the difference between fate and destiny, right? And how that ties in with past lives and karma and things like that. Destiny, to me, what it sounds like, just to sum it up, is basically destiny is choosing the path of the Creator. You know, as the word, if you go in the word, it says many are chosen, but few would choose. It sounds like this person, for each of their rounds of life, chose to follow the Creator. So that was destiny. But if you choose not to follow the Creator, you start falling under fate. In other words, you start falling under your karma. So if you were an evil person in the past life, and let's say you get to the next life and now it seems like you're a good person, fate from the past life is eventually going to catch up with you, especially if you don't decide to follow destiny. So Basically, family, that's what to me, that's what it's saying. In other words, take up your cross. Destiny is your cross. What does the Creator have meant for you in your life in this time? Or are you going to keep running from the Creator and keep getting caught by fate and making the wrong choice? The children of God were not yet the heirs of God, nor inheritors of godhood. But there was one among them who had almost completed the pilgrimage of Enid Vadu. He had unraveled the tangled skins of fate and traveled the tumultuous seas of life to the many ports of destiny, and having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enid Vadu. Hold on, I need to write something down and take a note real quick, family. One second, family. It is a... I'm taking notes. I should have took these notes the first time I went through, but I was so excited about what I was reading when I remember that I just kept going. And I hate taking notes. I'm not gonna lie. But it's good to take notes. Many are chosen, but few would choose. Oh, hold on. Okay. He was Fanvar. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me see. He had unraveled the tangled skeins of fate and traversed the tumultuous seas of life to the many ports of destiny. And having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enid Vadu. He was Fanvar, son of Amu and Atima. Oh, he was Fanvar, son of Amu and Atum. He was wise and knew all things. He beheld mysteries and the secret things hidden from the eyes of other men. He saw sunrise and the sun setting in their splendor, but longed for things not realizable in the place where he lived. So because he walked with God, he was culled out from his kind and brought to Meruah, the garden place. He came to it across the mountains and wastelands, arriving after many days' journeying, weary and close to death because of the privations he suffered. He could just reach the refreshing waters, from which he drank deeply, and filled with exhaustion, he slept. In his sleep he dreamed, and this was the manner of his dreaming. He saw before him a being of indescribable glory and majesty, who said, I am the God above all, even above the God of your people. I am that which fulfills the aspirations of men, and I am that in which they are fulfilled. You, having traversed all the circles of Enid Vadu, and established your worthiness, are now made my governor on earth, and you shall rule all things here, guiding them in my ways, leading them ever upward into glory. This will be your labor, and behold, here is your reward. I want to mention two things about this, family. When I read this, what I get to mind, there's this show on, I think it's HBO. I could be wrong, but it's a show called Evil. And I remember there was this scene, and the main character was laying in bed, and then he started levitating, and then all of a sudden, many different layers, these green rings that, not green, my bad, these gold rings, like imagine a gold ring, like a wedding band, right? But wider, it's not a wedding band, but just imagine something like that, but wider, and there was multiple of them stacking on top of each other. Like there was one, and there's a little space, and there's two little space, there's 3, 4, 5, so on going up. And in the middle, and so in this dream, the vision this man was having, he was laying in bed and these gold rings appeared over him. It's a matter of fact, imagine if you've seen the movie Stargate back in the day, or even if you've seen the TV show Stargate, you know the rings that the Goa'uld used to transport from their spaceships to the ground. Basically, imagine that. Imagine rings, right? All of a sudden, a light coming and the rings just popping down on top of the man, right? And he just starts levitating. And as he looks inside the rings, not on the outside, but on the inside of the rings, he sees figures of angels on each ring going up. So when I look at this vision in this show called Evil, what I get in mind of these rings when I read this is I get Jacob's ladder. I get the ascension of life. I think that each ring is a representation of another lifetime, of another test. Each ring is, okay, like for instance, the first ring, that's the first level you came on. You know, that's the first level, that's your first time doing the circle of life. Then if you pass that, if you do well, then you go into the second ring. And you know, that's after you pass away in life in the first ring. And then you go back to wherever you go to spiritual ring, and then you come back, and now you come back on the second level, and now you go through that life, and then now so on, you pass again. If you pass that and you do good, now you go into the third ring, fourth ring. But apparently right now, I think most of us get trapped like in the third and fourth ring. Like I think we might be in the third ring right now, or the fourth. Like some people say fourth dimension, third dimension, but I think, like I said, a lot of us are trapped at the bottom because it's hard to get past a lot of the sins and things we do. But that's what I kind of see when I see those rings, and I think about the Ened Vadu. It sounds like to me that, hold on, what's his name? It sounds like Fanvar. Personally, Fanvar sounds like he's Adam. You know, and not to mention he's a son of Amma and Atom. I'm just saying. Not that they were the first Adam and Eve, but I think Fanvar is really the Adam from the Bible. I'm thinking in my mind that this book takes place after, I believe that the garden in the Bible of Eden takes place right after this story. Because if you go back to the Bible and let's think about Cain, right? After he killed Abel, that word. After Cain deleted Abel, it's YouTube, I don't want no issues. After Cain deleted Abel, remember he was banished, right, from Eden. But it said that he got married, he found a wife. And people sit here and say, but wait, Adam and Eve were the first ones. So how could there have been other people? So where these other people come from? There you go. It right here, it explains Fanvar came from other people. That's where Cain went. So basically the difference is Fanvar, this is the difference between people who have the Holy Spirit, or as they would say, or the wisdom of the Most High, whatever you want to call it. Those who have an understanding of creation. Those who, remember in the beginning of the book, it was talking about, and I think chapter, was it, I don't know, one of the other reasons, it was either some chapter before chapter 5. We're only in chapter 5, so somewhere between 1 and 4. Remember it spoke of the she-ape, right? And it said that she was, basically, it made it sound like she was the first to become aware of herself. She was the first to overcome the beast nature, the fleshly nature, and become aware of self. Remember, animals aren't aware of self. They just act off instinct. They do what they do, and then they die. That's it. There's nothing more to it. You eat, they mate, they have children, that's it. There's no thought of, is there a God? Am I something different? Am I a spiritual? Am I energy? Am I just this flesh? Is there something after life? So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Fanvar was the first Adam, in my opinion. And basically this is the story of Adam making it to the garden before the Bible takes over with Adam and Eve. But I know it might sound crazy, but just go with me. I'm going to keep reading. He came to, hold on. Okay. He was Fanvar, son of Ammu and Atum. He was wise and knew all things. He beheld mysteries and the secret things hidden from the eyes of other men. He saw sunrise and the sun setting in their splendor. but longed for things not realizable in the place where he lived. So because he walked with God, he was culled out from his kind and brought to Meruah, the garden place. He came to it across the mountains and wastelands, arriving after many days' journeying, weary and close to death because of the provisions he suffered. Because of the privations he suffered, he could just reach the refreshing waters from which he drank deeply, and filled with exhaustion he slept. In his sleep he dreamed, and this was the manner of his dreaming. He saw before him a being of indescribable glory and majesty, who said, I am the God above all, even above the God of your people. I am that which fulfills the aspirations of men, and I am that in which they are fulfilled. You, having traversed all the circles of Ened Vadu, and established your worthiness, are now made my governor on earth, and you shall rule over all things. Here, guiding them in my ways, leading them ever upwards into glory. This will be your labor, and behold, here is your reward. Yeah, sounds like Adam to me. Yeah, this is gonna be a good read, family. I forgot how long this one. A cloud mist seemed to gather about the glorious being, enfolding him, so he was no longer visible. Then the mist gradually cleared, and the man saw another form emerging. It was that of a woman, but one such as Fanvar had never seen before, beautiful beyond his conception of beauty, with such perfection of form and grace that he was dumbfounded. Yet the vision was not substantial. She was a wraith, an ethereal being. It sounded like she was a woman of his dream. It sounded like she was a woman of his dreams, is what it sounded like to me. Itchy eye. The man awoke. Yep, she was in his dreams. Ethereal. Wow, I didn't realize. The first time I read this, I didn't realize that she was in his dreams. She's a woman of his dreams. Huh. That's interesting. The man awoke and sought food from the fruits about him, and having refreshed himself, wandered about the garden. Wherever he went, he saw the wraith, but was unafraid because she smiled encouragingly, bringing comfort to his heart. He built himself a shelter and grew strong again, but always, wherever he went, the wraith was not far distant. The wraith is like a hold on, family. Let me look it up. Let me because I forgot what a wraith is. Hold on, no. I forgot what a wraith is, family. Let me look this up real quick. I know it's like a ghost or something, a spirit, something like that. Wraith. A ghost or ghost-like image of someone, especially one seen shortly before or after their death. Huh. Okay, family. So this makes me think that it's funny. So it makes me feel like this Eve, this is the first Eve, she was a ghost. She was a spirit. And you ever heard men talk about how they've had wet dreams, or you ever heard people talk about, men, you had a dream where you were having intercourse with someone, and then some people might say that is akin to having intercourse with a demon in your dreams or a spirit. That's kind of what this is reminding me of right now. A woman in his dreams, because she's a ghost, and now it's saying that he woke up and he can still see her, which means she has the power to enter his mind and enter his dreams. So what else could she be but a spiritual being, but a ghost? The man awoke and sought food from the fruits about him, and having refreshed himself, wandered about the garden. Wherever he went, he saw the wraith, but was unafraid because she smiled encouragingly, bringing comfort to his heart. He built himself a shelter and grew strong again, but always wherever he went, the wraith was not far distant. One day, near the edge of the garden, he fell asleep in the heat of the day, and awoke to find himself surrounded by the sons of Bothas, not true men, but yoslings, kinfolk to the beasts of the forest. That's what I was talking about in a earlier reading, family, when they talking about the she-apes and stuff. This is who I was wondering that they might come from. Do they come from the yoslings? Matter of fact, I want to take hold on one second, family. Yoslings, page 16. chapter 5. Third paragraph down. Zindi. I'm taking notes because I'm making another video, family, and I'm trying to explain something. But I want to put something out. Nah, I ain't gonna say nothing yet. Zindi. If you know anything about Star Trek Enterprise and the different races of the Zindi, just one day I'll be saying, family, Star Trek. I did not realize, honestly. I kind of noticed before years ago, but very faintly. But it just hit me like a freight train. Family, when I say Star Trek in itself is so esoteric. Star Trek, man, has so much in it. I never realized until I opened my mind to read further and to go into different books and to read deeper into esoteric things and occultism. Man, Star Trek, Star Trek is crazy, yo. When you truly have understanding Star Trek, man. Anyway, one day near the edge of the garden, he fell asleep in the heat of the day and awoke to find himself surrounded by the sons of Bothas, no true men but yoslings, kinsfolk to the beast of the forest. Before they could take, sounds like apes, before they could take his strength and wisdom, he loosed himself among them, slaying some in his rage and might before the rest ran away. When it was done, he sat himself down beneath a great tree, for he was wounded, and blood gushed out from his side and gathered thickly beside him. He became faint, falling into a deep sleep, and while he slept, a wondrous thing happened. The wraith came and lay beside him, taking blood from his wound upon herself, so it congealed about her. Thus the spirit being became clothed with flesh, born of congealing blood, and being sundered from his side, she rose, a mortal woman. Sound a lot like Adam and Eve in that rib, don't it? In his heart, Fanvar was not at rest because of her likeness. He was like, dang, she looked good. She was bad. But she was gentle, ministering to him with lightness. But she was gentle, ministering to him with solitude. But she was gentle, ministering to him with solicitude, and being skillful in the ways of healing. She made him whole. Therefore, when he had grown strong again, he made her queen in the garden land. And she was so called even by our fathers, whom named her Gula. But Fanvar called her Arua, meaning helpmate. In our tongue, she is called the Lady of Lanevid. Sound a little bit like Adam and Eve to me. Now God enlightened Fanvar concerning the woman, saying, this woman was drawn from her compatible. Now God enlightened Fanvar concerning the woman, saying, this woman was drawn from her compatible abode in a realm of beauty. Though the yearning aspirations of men, her coming accomplishes something which would otherwise have taken countless generations. For earth is more fitting for men to learn manly things than for women to learn womanly ones. Just want to say, family, this is what's that saying back in the day? Men are from Mars and women are for Venus. And what's today we arguing about? We have a lot of arguments, like they have the red pill community and things like that, and women come saying that, we don't need a man and need this. This right here is sitting here to tell you, look, it's not to say, not talking about abusive relationships or anything. What I always explain this, I try to explain this to people. Men and women need each other. We work together. It's not one just having dominion over one all the time. But the man is in charge for a reason. As it said, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Earth is made for testing. And apparently, she was not ready for the test of Earth. So the man was there to help protect and guide her until she became acquainted with the environment. But nonetheless, this environment is not necessarily still. I'll put it like this. If we didn't have society fixed up with laws and houses and all this comfort, just saying, a lot of certain people of a certain sex would be in trouble. And don't get me wrong, another sex is very grateful for this other sex because life is hard. As we were reading earlier, this is a test. It sucks at times. Sometimes you're like, man, I don't want to do this no more. But there's nothing like that opposite sex coming in and giving you some peace of mind, giving you a release, having a partner, having somebody to support you as you go through this tribulation. In my opinion, family, we're in hell. I'm sorry. You know, I don't believe in the fire damnation hell, but I do believe in hell, and I believe that we're in hell. I believe I'm in hell. I believe we're in a lower level. We're in third, fourth dimension. Now as we go up higher, it'll get better, and it'll be like more heaven state. But right now, this is like pure hell, family. This place is hell. I'm sorry. But I understand that it's for a reason, and it's to learn. So I thank the Creator. I thank the Most High for this chance to go through and to learn, and I get it'll be worth it one day. We'll understand. So let me keep going. In the heart of Fanvar was not at in his heart Fanvar was not at rest because of her likeness, but she was gentle, ministering to him with solicitude and being skillful in the ways of healing. She made him whole. Therefore, when he had grown strong again, he made her queen of the garden land. And she was so called, even by our fathers who named her Gula. But Fanvar called her Arua, meaning helpmate. In our tongue, she is called the lady, Lainvid. Now God enlightened Fanvar concerning the woman, saying, this woman was drawn from her compatible abode in the realm of beauty through the yearning aspirations of men. Her coming accomplishes something which would otherwise have taken countless generations. For earth is more fitting for men to learn manly things than for women to learn womanly ones. This woman is not as other women, being in no way like yourself. Every hair of her head is unlike that of a man. Every drop of the blood and every particle of flesh is that of a woman, and quite unlike that of a man. Her thoughts and desires are different. She is neither coarse nor uncouth, being altogether of another, more refined realm. Her daughters will walk proudly, endowed with every womanly perfection and grace. Delicacy, modesty, and charm will be the lovely jewels enhancing their womanliness. Henceforth, man will be truly man and woman will be truly woman. Man being girded with manliness and woman being clothed with womanliness. See, even this book says there's a difference between man and woman. There's a feminine and there's the masculine. We're different, but it's not bad. We complement each other. We help each other. This world would be horrible without the both of us. Yet they shall walk together hand in hand towards the ascending glory before them, each the helpmate and inspiration of the other. Hear that? So Fanvar and Arua lived in contentment amid bounty and fruitfulness, with freedom from afflictions and sickness. They delighted in each other, and because of their differences, were drawn closer together. Arua brought but one thing with her when she crossed the misty frontier: the treasure of Lainvid, the jewel contained in the moon chalice, the stone of inspiration fashioned by the desire of men, never owned by any but the daughters of Arua. This the Langil Arua gave to Fanvar as her dowry and her pledge of purity and exclusiveness. She followed the ways of the cradle land, not the ways of earth. Within the garden land, she said the cradle land, I'm guessing that's the spiritual realm, or the spiritual realm where she came from, the cradle, where she was born. Within the garden land was the sacred enclosure, the domain of Fanvar and Arua, forbidden to those of the children of God who had now come to this place. It contained the chalice of fulfillment, granting any who drank from it the realization of all things to which they aspired. None might drink from this savor Fanvar and Arua. Also there was the cauldron of immortality. Also there was the cauldron of immortality, containing an essence distilled from the fruits growing in the garden, and this guarded against mortal ills. Arua brought forth a son by Fanvar, and he was called Ratuki, and a daughter who was called Armina. Each knew the mysteries of magic and the ways of the stars. In the fullness of time, Ratuki married among the daughters of the sons of God, and had two sons, Inanari and Ninduka. Inanari reminds me, if anybody ever seen that show, The Magicians, I think, on the Sci-Fi Channel, it almost reminds me of Fillory. Although it's not the same word, but it almost to me has the same ring. And it's talking about magic. And Ninduka. It was Inanri who first taught the weaving of cloth from plants, and Ninduka was a mighty hunter. Armina also married among the sons of God and brought forth a son who was called Belinki, and daughters called Anuna and Mameta. These almost sound like Egyptian names in a way too, to be honest. Anuna knew the making of pots and things of clay, and Mameta the taming of beasts and birds. Nanduka had two sons, Namtara and Canaan. Namtara had two sons, also Nanduka and Dedam. Before dying, see these names? Come on now, Dedam, come on now. Before dying in the fullness of manhood, Belinki married Nidva. Belinki married Enidva and had a son called Enkidu and a daughter called Estartha, meaning maid of the morning, and she became a great teacher among the children of God. This was the Estartha who became the first moon maiden, being later called Lady of the Morning Star. Enkidu had a daughter and her name was Meiva. Where did I hear Meiva before? I think I just heard that recently. If anybody remembers the name Meiva is from, put it in the comment section, because I know I heard that recently, not too long ago, but I can't remember where it's from. Outside the sacred enclosure, known as Gizar, but forming a gateway into it was a circular structure. Outside the sacred enclosure, known as Gizar, but forming a gateway into it was a circular structure of stones. Maybe Stonehenge? Well, let me not reach too much. Yeah, not Stonehenge per se, but maybe who knows where the architecture for Stonehenge came from. Called Gilgal, and within this was a shrine wherein was kept a sacred vessel called Gwendiva. This was like a goblet and was made of rainbow-hued crystal set in gold with pearls. Above the cup appeared a shimmering moon-colored mist like a thin cold flame. At certain times when the heavens were in a proper position, the Gwenduva was filled with moon dew and potions from the cauldron, which the sacred enclosure making a pale honey-colored liquor, and this the people drank from the goblet. However, there were different proportions in the vessel for those of the blood of Fanvar and Arua, and those who were children of God, but not of their blood. It was the potion from the Gwenduva which kept sickness and disease away from those who drank it. Dedam, the first father, married Letha, and they had a son called Herthu. Dedam then married Meiva, who had a daughter, not by him, and this was Gweneva, the cuckold, fathered by Abriminid of Gorthon, son of Namtinigal, whom we call Lud of Dark Father. Hold on, let me read that again. Dedam, the first father, married Letha, and they had a son called Herthu. Dedam then married Meiva, who had a daughter, not by him, and this was Gweneva, the cuckoo child, fathered by Abranid of Wathon, son of Namtingal, whom we call Lud, the Dark Father. I wonder if cuckoo child almost means like a cuck or a cuckold. Basically, in other words, it's almost like a woman who has a child by another man who is either neither alive anymore or they're just not together. That child becomes a cucka child. That's what I'm wondering if that's what that means. Like, it's almost like, you know, it's more difficult for that woman to find another relationship because she has a child from a former relationship. I wonder if that's what that means. About the land of the children of God was the wasteland. Matter of fact, let me look it up while I'm sitting here asking. I'm curious. Cuckoo child. A ghost or ghost-like image of someone Oh no, that's not. That's the old one. Oh, copy. Sorry, family. That I had the old. Yeah, that's not the right one. I'm curious on this definition. Well, nothing's coming up. Okay. Wait, hold on. What is this? Okay. Let's see. I don't know if this is right, but I typed it in. Okay. The controversial measure will force women to divulge acts of adultery or infidelity during a relationship. It has already been dubbed the Cuckoo Kids Law by the German press after the German phrase for children conceived in adultery. The equivalent of milkman's kids in English. Oh. Okay. The term comes from cuckoo birds' tendency to find a nest from another species of birds that already has eggs in it. Remove the other birds. Legislative SLUT shaming how the German Cuckoo Kids Law referred German press Cuckoo Kids Law. It is designed to protect men who have discovered themselves not to be. Okay, it's not exactly what I. Or is it? Maybe it kind of just the meaning kind of evolved over time. But it's not too far off from what I said. I think personally. Dang it, where was I? Oh man. Okay, hold on. Okay, never mind. The Dam, the first father, married Letha, and they had a son called Herthu. The Dam then married Maeva, who had a daughter not by him, and this was Guinevere, the cuckold fathered by Abraminid of Gwarthon, son of Namtingal, whom we call Lud, the dark father. Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, she had a baby by. I guess she had a baby by a dude out of wedlock. About the land of the children of God was the wasteland where Yoslings, called the children of Zuma, which means they who inherit death, dwelt. Amongst these, Namtinagal, the wily hunter, was the most wise and cunning. He alone was unafraid of the children of God, and he alone dared enter the garden land. In the days when Estartha was teaching, Namtingal often came to hear her words, and the children of God were not displeased. For teaching the wild men about them was a duty with which they had been charged. Namtingal therefore participated in their rites, but could not partake of the elixir from the Gwenduvia, because this was forbidden, while it gave health and strength to the children of God, safeguarding them from the sicknesses of the Yoslings. If given to others, it caused a wasting away. It was also altogether forbidden for any of the children of God to mate with the Yoslings, for this was deemed to be the most unforgivable of sins. Now the wily ones, and remember, the Yoslings are probably like beasts, family. They're like apes. So it's not, I don't think it's the same thing as today. It's like saying, so-called white person or so-called black or so-called Hispanic and so-called Asian, something like that. Well, these people from these Yoslings sound like they are literally apes. So no, unless you are into bestiality, you shouldn't be going out there trying to sleep with a Yosling. So that's what I get from this. Now the wily ones learned much from Estartha. Matter of fact, in the Bible it talks about, maybe this is where bestiality comes from in the Bible. Not necessarily that men were, the issue was sleeping with actual like cattle and stuff, but sleeping with like beings like this, Yoslings. Now the wily one learned much from Estartha, and in the fullness of time brought his own son to her, and he became as her son, living in her house and forsaking the ways of his people. Estartha called him Ludwig, the light bringer, for it was her intention that he should be taught the ways of those who walk in light, that he might in time enlighten his own people. Lud grew up tall and handsome. He was quick to learn and became wise. He was also a man of the chase, strong and enduring, a hunter of renown. But there were times when the call of his people was strong. Then he would go out furtively into the night to indulge in their dark rituals. Thus he became knowledgeable in the ways of the flesh and in the carnal indulgences of the body. Dedam became a servant of the sacred enclosure, where the misty veil between the realms could be penetrated. For all those having the blood of Arua had twin sight, an ability to see wraiths and sith folk, Ansis and spirit beings, all the things of the other world, not clearly but as through a veil. Beside the place called Gizar was a pleasant parkland with trees of every kind, and a stream, also thickets of flowering bushes, and all manner of plants growing lushly. It was the custom of Maeva to wander there in the sunshine, and Lud also went there. So it came about that they met among the trees. Maeva knew the man, but had shunned him in the past. Now she saw he was handsome, possessed of many attractions. So her foot was stayed, and she did not run away. As the days passed, they dallied longer together, and Lud talked of things Maeva had not heard before. She felt a stirring in her blood, but did not respond or heed his temptations, because of the things which were forbidden. So Lud went to the Moon Mother, wise woman of the Yoslings, and telling of his desire, beseeched her to help him. The Moon Mother gave him 2 apples containing a vile substance, which they had drawn through their stalks. This Lud gave Maeva, who then became helpless in his hands. Sounds a lot like the Disney story of Sleeping Beauty and the apple. They met again. Like I said, family, when you read books well, I didn't say books, but also more newer books and movies and TV shows today, and if you go back and do study, you realize a lot of these stories, like they say, nothing's new under the sun. People talk about that, oh, I got this, I made it up myself. Reality, no, it's not true. They stole it. Or they took an old story and just added their own thing to it, their own little spin. Okay, the Moon Mother gave him 2 apples containing a vile substance, which they had drawn through their stalks. This Lud gave to Maeva, who then became helpless in his hands. They met again after this, for Maeva became enamored towards Lud, but it happened that she became ill with a strange sickness and was afraid. Then Dedam became ill, and Lud also. And Lud said to the woman, you must obtain the pure essence from within the sacred enclosure, and Satina, the Moon Mother, will prepare an elixir which will cure us. This he said because none of his kind had ever been able to obtain the sacred substance, though they had always coveted what had been denied them. Now because of her frailty, the woman was pliable in his hands, and Lud seized the opportunity. To achieve his ends, Lud gave Maeva a potion which had been prepared by the Moon Mother, and she administered this to Dedam and those with him, by guile and deceit, so that they fell asleep. I have something to say about this, but I ain't going to say it, because we learning. While they slept, Maeva stole from the sacred substances, and took them to Lud, who gave them the Moon Mother. While they slept, Maeva stole from the sacred substances, and took them to Lud, who gave them to the Moon Mother, and she made a brew. Part of this was given to Maeva, and the rest was drunk by the Yoslings from their offal and kittle during their night rites. When the morning came, they were all smitten with grievous pains, and before the sunset that day, all the Yoslings were stricken with a sickness such as they had not known before. Maeva took what had been given to her, and finding Dedam laid low in his bed, gave him a draught from her vessel. Though she had to use womanly wiles to get him to drink it, she drank the remainder, and they both slept. But when they awoke in the morning, both were suffering pains, and this was something they had not known before. Dedam said to the woman, what have you done? For what has happened to us cannot be unless the things which are forbidden have been done. The woman replied, Lord, I was tempted and I fell. I've done that which is forbidden and unforgivable. Dedam said, I am bound by duty to do certain things. But first let us go into the Gisar, to the place called Beth Kelchris, where I will seek enlightenment. So they went there together and stood before the shrine beneath the tree of wisdom. There they were filled with an inflowing vision, seeing themselves as they were, and as they should have been. And they were ashamed. He because he had not followed the proper path of man, and she because of her falsity. There in the reflecting mist, the contamination of the woman was revealed, and the man's heart shriveled within him like a flower licked by flame. Then they saw a great sprite being materializing in the reflecting mist, and he said to them, Woe to you and your house, for the greatest of evils has befallen the race of the children of God, and it is defiled. The heritage of Candampha is lost. The fetid flow defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling, but it is not all, for sickness and disease are also generating from the firmaments of the impure implantation. From the impure implantation. Did she get pregnant? You know what? This also sounds like something I was reading when it said something, when it sound like, you know, when it sound like the dam looked down because he was like he didn't follow the proper way of a man. I wonder if that mean by him taking on a wife who had kids already. Hey. Then they saw a great sprite being materializing in the reflecting mist, and he said to them, Woe to you and your house, for the greatest of evils has befallen the race of the children of God, and it is defiled. The heritage of Kadaf is lost. The fetid flow defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling, but it is not all, for sickness and disease are also generating from the firmaments of the impure implantation. The dam said, The fault is with the woman, wherefore should I suffer? The sprite being replied, Because you two are now as one. The cankerworms of disease and sickness strike both equally, but you shall not again defile this place. Henceforth, the misty veil becomes an impenetrable barrier, severing our two realms from each other, so they can no longer be easily spanned. Between us there will now be no means of communication. Henceforth, man and woman fated to unite in love divine shall be divided and set apart, though ever yearning reunion. They may cleave one to the other, seeking the unity which will rekindle the flame, but unless their efforts transcend the limitations of earthly things, they will be in vain. The spirit of man is now severed from the whole and cast again into unconsciousness, and it too shall long for reunion with the whole. The spark shall seek to return to the fire, for otherwise it becomes nothing. The web of fate is rewoven, and the paths of destiny remade. The design of life is redrawn again. The progression begins in ignorance. Birth and death, pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow, success and failure, love and hate, peace and war, all the light and shade, the many hues making this splendidly intricate pattern of life on earth. This is a new beginning, but a beginning not in purity and unencumbered, but one already weighed with debts and burdens. As I always tell people, family, you think that just sleeping around, people in today's world are so quick to just sleep around and do anything with anybody, but this right here tells me there's no such thing as strings attached. Sleeping around with people, letting people defy your temple always comes with a price. And a lot of times it's a price, most of the time it's a price you can't even see or even know this affecting you. The spirit being continued, enough wickedness has been wrought by your willfulness and disobedience, for the decrees forbidding certain things were for your own benefit. Immortality was nearly within your reach, but had you achieved this, you would have brought an even more grievous evil upon yourselves and your inheritors. For freed from servitude to change, you and they would have been unable to progress. The children of God were driven out of the garden land by sprite beings, and then guardians were set at its gates, so none could re-enter. Then it was withdrawn beyond the misty veil. The waters ceased to flow, and the fertility departed. Only a wilderness remained. The children of God went to dwell in the land of Amanigo, which is beyond the mountains of Mashur by the sea of Delmuna. From this time onward, man fashioned his own spirit likeness. Some who were loathsome in aspect, even unto themselves, went apart and were mercifully veiled in dark depths. And they said among themselves, let us dwell here in the darkness, and prepare a place for others like ourselves, so that when they follow, they abide here and join us. Thus were the dark regions formed, and inhabited by demons who are not, but the hideously fashioned spirits of evil men. These things have been written. It just sounds like when it says dark regions, some people might take, oh, dark-skinned people. No, that's not what it's saying. It's just saying your spirit. It's talking about the intentions of people. I guess they went down a dark path. They started doing things they shouldn't have done, so their spirits became dark, and they became like evil people. Just like I was saying earlier, people, there's a difference between the Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. They're all three different things. They're not the same. They're not the same. These things have been written into the records in Seboity. They used to say this was the manner of man's making. God sent his creating craftsman spirit down to earth, and the reflection of the one was drawn into a spiritless body, and this became the heart of man. These are the words written by Thonis of Myra in Laodicea in his day. You ask me, what is man? And I answer, he is life becoming aware of itself. He is the intangible knowing the tangible. Spirit and matter, fire and water. When this first happened, none remembers. When this first happened, none remembers, and only the old folk tales remain. There was the beginning and then the garden, and it was in this garden man found himself. Before this he was not free, being one with everything about him. As he could not disobey, good and evil could not be. They were non-existent. In other words, they lived by their nature. So I guess good and evil wouldn't be a thing if everyone was just living off their natures. Like, for instance, a lion going in and killing, like, let's say a lion kills another lion, and then he goes in and kills that lion's cubs, and then takes that lion's females. To us, that might seem, in our reality, oh, that's horrible, that's evil. But to them, that's just nature, that's life. They have no concept of good or evil. That's just nature. That's just what it is. Man became, that's why I say that's the difference between people with souls, or people and animals. The separation is our souls, family. It gives us empathy. If you don't have a soul, you don't have that empathy. That's what sets us apart. That makes us a God. Our empathy of right, which gives us the knowledge of right and wrong. In other words, the Yoslings might go destroy somebody, delete them, and might not think anything of it. But a man will go delete somebody, and then it'll break his heart because he's lost a part of his soul because of that empathy within him. Man became free through awareness of himself, and with this knowledge denied any kinship with the beast. As he was no longer in harmonious relationship with things of the earth, he became discontented, dissatisfied, and restless. He wanted to belong, but felt his place of belonging was not there. He had been reborn as a man god, and therefore it is truly said that man was born of earth and spirit, under a tree, the symbol of life, and in the garden. There the eyes of man and woman were opened, and being above the beasts, they knew they were different and set apart from all else that breathed. They separated themselves, being now ashamed of their state and strangers to each other. The carnal satisfactions of lesser creatures now no longer suffice. They had lost contact with the source of love, but though knowing something was lacking, knew not what. They had fallen into carnal knowledge, which only man can know, for only he feels the reproach of divinity. They were removed from the garden of content by an inhalation of the divine substance. They were removed from the garden of content by an inhalation of the divine substance, and could not return because of the barrier between man and non-man. Kamelik has written, the entwined were cut apart, and since that day have never known content. They wander restlessly, ever seeking to unite again, and together find the jewel which is lost to earth forever. Lupisis has written, the first woman who came from the void is the eternal glorified goddess, the inspirer of hearts, the ideal of womanhood honored by all men. The priestess, as the shrines of delicacy and tenderness. She was the ideal woman who, because of man's nature, is always tempted by his twin shade, the beast in his form. If the beast triumphs and she falls, the ideal becomes enshrouded in winding cloths of disillusionment, and something is lost to the heart of man. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like what's going on today, where a lot of women like so-called bad boys, men who give into their flesh, and now a lot of women are they can't help but be jaded by only like men who treat them like garbage, and the ones who treat them good, they treat them like garbage. You know, in other words, like this, the damn. You know, being a faithful husband, thinking everything fine, and then she ends up going. Anyway, let me stop. These words are also there. They did not partake of wisdom and fruit. Hold on, let me go back. If the beast triumphs and she falls, the ideal becomes enshrouded in winding cloths of disillusionment, and something is lost to the heart of man. These words are also there. They did not partake of wisdom, and fruit from the tree of knowledge is bitter. Men are denied their true birthright. The fall of man was a fall from loving contact with God into material carnality. The soul that had shared the consciousness of God fell into unconsciousness by becoming ensnared in matter. The fall, remember how it said earlier, as it was describing in earlier chapters, as it was describing the Creator creating earth, and how when the Father's Spirit is in earth, it becomes entrapped and enthralled with physical things. But when it is away from earth, it's cool, it's good, it sees the truth. That's what I saw from what I just read. The fall of man was a fall from loving contact with God into material carnality. The soul that had shared the consciousness of God fell into unconsciousness by becoming ensnared in matter, in the matrix. He got get ensnared in the matrix. The fall severed man from the source of his spiritual substance. Thereafter his efforts were to struggle back. In his blind groping for God, after the fall he discovered demons and found it easier to worship them than to continue the search. God is always waiting. Man has only to look up. But it is easier to go down the hill than to climb it. It is easier for man's spiritual beliefs to degenerate than to evolve. In other words, the difference between destiny and fate. Most people aren't going to pick destiny, they're going to pick fate. Who among men knows the truth and can write within certain knowledge? Would not this certainly be against the law? No man was there at the beginning to see and write. But of one thing alone we can be sure. The creating God knows how and why. And could the acts of one so great be without purpose? Alright, family. I'm going to stop there. That was a long chapter. Next time we're going to take up at chapter 6. As usual, thank you for joining into my channel, Sectarian Wisdom. I'm your man, Elijah. And as always, I am a wise, wealthy, rich, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. We got it, family. Let's go. Talk to you later. Oh, this is always happening, man. I should keep